All right, howdy guys, and welcome again. Thank you guys for being here for our Accessibility in Aggieland webinar series. My name is Megan Orsag. I'm the Associate Director at the Center on Disability and Development. And Dr. Christy Orr is with me from Disability Resources, and we co-host this Accessibility in Aggieland webinar series. We're so excited you're here today, and thank you guys for your time and wanting to learn more about how we can all be part of accessibility on campus. I'm thrilled today because we have Cynthia Cotter here with us today from Electronic and Information Resources. And she's going to be talking more about accessibility of applications and websites. And the description of this webinar is the litigation in recent years has catapulted accessibility to new heights when it comes to topics of concern within higher education. With an increasing dependence on online resources and applications, strategies to ensure compliance may seem confusing. We'll examine ways to improve access through the application and product selections, as well as ways to improve access to faculty websites. Accessibility planning, best practices, and documentation methods will be examined in order to create a clear path towards compliance with state and federal mandates. And I'm going to share a little bit more about Cynthia, our guest speaker today. Cynthia served as the EIR Accessibility Coordinator with Texas A&M University since 2015, where she and her team utilized risk-based assessments to drive accessibility compliance. Recent affiliations include the EDU CAUSE Center for Analyses and Research, ECAR, IT Accessibility Working Group, the Texas A&M ADA Committee and the Go Web Steering Committee, and the Texas A&M University System Council for Academic Technologies and Innovative Tech Education, and its Accessibility Universal Design for Learning Task Force. Cynthia is a graduate of Texas A&M with marketing and communications experience in the private sector. She's been involved in IT strategic planning at Texas A&M and the Texas A&M Health Science Center, where she played an essential role in directing accessibility efforts for almost 5 years. Cynthia, we're so excited you're here today, and we just thank you for your time, and I'm going to pass the microphone over to you to get going.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I always take every opportunity I can to speak on accessibility. It is a true love of mine, not just a vocation. And so I'm certainly happy to do that today. Here we go. Well, I'll be, as Megan was saying, speaking to you about accessibility of applications and websites today. To do this, I'll provide a bit of background on understanding learner needs, and then we'll talk quite a bit about selecting applications and creating websites, but then also mix in a little bit about designing documents and ensuring access for the long term for everyone. So to start out with understanding learner needs, you know, every learner has preferences. Every individual has preferences. So we may arrive at a, website in a different way than someone else. For example, we may use the URL, or we may actually have the link to where we just click on the link and go there from another website. We may use navigation to get to where we want to in the website. Everyone has their own unique way of getting to electronic resources. So we need to just kind of be aware of that to start out with. And I just wanted to kind of make it clear, and I'm sure this has been touched on before in this series, but the option of disclosing a disability or choosing not to is up to each individual. So they may do so at any time, or they may choose not to do so at all. So we want to make sure that all of our resources at Texas A&M University are accessible to everyone from the get-go, not just as an afterthought or with an accommodation. There may be multiple ways of accessing information, like I said before, and those preferences are just as unique as we are as individuals. The multiple modes and formats are beneficial when presenting information or when providing information to your audience. So if you can at all, if you're promoting something, if you're engaging through a website, just the multiple modes of access is helpful. You could provide printed text, you can provide a video to go along with that, transcripts, captions, the like. And the more ways we can provide that information, the better it is for our audience. Starting out with how students use assistive technology, here are just several types of the technology or assistive technology that students may use, and even staff or faculty. Screen readers read aloud text for individuals who may be blind or have low vision or cognitive disabilities. And this is ever so important to design resources with that in mind, so that is appropriate for the utilization of those types of screen readers and assistive technologies. Keyboard only access is a large group of users at Texas A&M University and across the United States and world, really. It's for individuals who are blind, low vision, or have motor skill disabilities. And Zoom text can be handy for, even all of us. It's enlarging the screen to see information for those with low vision, those who may use or may have glasses. I fall into that category myself, obviously, but it's ever so important to make sure that the code behind those resources allows us to present that information in an understandable way. Other types of assistive technologies are tactile graphics for blind individuals, and then transcripts and closed captioning can be beneficial for us all. So if you want to know more, and I have these little tips throughout the presentation, but just ask people their preferences. Remember to keep conversations confidential and not single anyone out. But the best way to find out more information about how people are accessing your resources is to engage with them and find out more about them. So first we'll talk about selecting applications, and this, I don't know if you've heard that a lot of folks think it's a dirty word across campus, the VPAT and exceptions. The VPAT is a voluntary product accessibility template, and it's a report card, if you will, of the accessibility criteria and how a specific product matches up to those criteria. It allows us, as those procuring electronic and information resources, or EIR, to be able to go in and make an educated decision about whether or not to purchase a particular product for a business need. And so the VPAT, which we utilize as a template, once it's filled out by the vendor, it turns into an accessibility conformance report, or ACR. And it can be referred to by both those terms interchangeably, although the correct terminology once it's filled out is conformance report, accessibility conformance report. It's a global standard, and it's voluntary is a misnomer, because only voluntary for the vendor. We, as an institution of higher education, are required to analyze and ask for VPATs from the vendors. There's no such document for like design work, like websites, or if we want to hire someone to make an application for us, or some software for us. There's not document for that type of service offering. So it's important to have conversations with those vendors in advance, either through, the statement of work, the RFP, in the procurement process, or just in, conversations getting to know the vendor and their capability, whether they have an accessibility timeline or roadmap, and those sorts of things are helpful in those particular cases. Now, for the VPAT, it can be confusing because you'll see that there are several kinds of VPATs, but the one we utilize at Texas A&M University is WCAG 2.1 Level 2A, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. So here are some steps in procuring accessible applications, and my best advice to you is just do the research. Consider multiple products to meet a business or academic need, and then narrow those down based on the business need and the accessibility features of those resources. You should, in doing that homework, obtain the accessibility conformance reports either online or by contacting the vendor, and then you can kind of see how those measure up. One of the things when I get into showing you one, it's not more features that are indicated accessible, the better, right? It depends on the version of the product you're using, what capabilities of the product you're using. So you just want to make sure that, it's not always an apples to apples thing, to where you indicate, if the product is indicated that it meets all these requirements or meets a lot of the requirements, but you're not using some of that capability. So you have to kind of parse that with what your usage actually is for the product. If achieving full compliance is not possible, then you would need to request an exception. There are some products currently, or I should say categories of products at Texas A&M University that have sort of blanket exceptions. And those are like things that are for use for security or things for use by a small team that has a low risk associated with it. And in that case, we just have a register that you can sign on to and register that you're utilizing those types of products. If not, if you do have to fill out information, or if you do have to have an exception for the product based on the VPAT, then that would need to get approved by your dean or vice president. And then also it goes to the president or her designee. And all these requirements apply to both free acquisitions, open source, items, or anything that we purchase or procure for the university, pilots, trials, all those types of things. We have to consider all those types of resources. So we did this last time, and I was invited back, and I'm happy to be here again, obviously. But this is just a small, short exercise, where we go through and kind of take a look at 3 different products and determine, which would be a good choice as stewards of university resources. So we have product A that where 100% of accessibility criteria are met and 85% of the business need is met. And the vendor has a mature accessibility program and plans to expand their business offerings in the future. Product B, 50% of accessibility criteria are met, 100% of the business need is met, and the company is an industry leader, but the vendor itself is reluctant to provide accessibility information at all. And then product C, 85% of accessibility criteria are met, 100% of the business need is met, and the vendor is agreeable to feedback and future enhancements for accessibility. So we did, again, like I said, we did this last time, but if you can put in the chat what you think 1 or 2 of the better products would be, and then maybe the best product if you're trying to purchase something for Texas A&M University. And then I think Christy last time kept an eye out for like what folks were indicating that they thought was a good choice. So are you seeing anything yet, Christy?
Yeah, so A or C, but that's just probably C. And then I see another C, A or C.
Yeah, so that's great. What we're looking at, and you guys hit the nail right on the head, is that product A, obviously, if they're expanding their business offerings soon, that may be something where you go, okay, that's a little trade-off. maybe we're gonna just, kind of ease into using this product, and so that's okay. 100% of the accessibility is met, and we're gonna just ease on into the product offerings as they bring them up to speed. Or product C, which whereas the vendor can really, open tickets maybe for accessibility and provide feedback, get feedback from us to provide future enhancements. That's also ideal. And product B is just really, I think, not acceptable at all, because we want our vendors to provide as much information as they can, have an open dialogue with us, not just for accessibility, but for other reasons as well, right? But even though 100% of the business need is met, we cannot be certain that they will be responsive to us in the future.
Cynthia,
Are there any questions about? Are there any questions about anything? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have a question. Is there a list of products that are already approved for use by the university? She says she's aware of some, but not all.
That is a great question, and we'll get to that in like 1 or 2 more slides.
Great.
And there are, and we're also actively not just looking into products, but we're about to launch. Well, we have a project getting ready that we will eventually launch, which is, more of like grading the vendors for their accessibility programs and criteria, to where they fill out some information about their path for accessibility, and then they will eventually be preferred vendors of the university, dependent upon their score that they reach by filling out that form. And so that's in the works right now. That's a great question.
And then there's one more. Do you provide an accessibility lab for staff or faculty to be able to utilize to evaluate projects or products?
By lab, I don't know what you mean. We do offer the service of analyzing products. So an example is when the university was changing its LMS or looking to change the LMS, we looked at the 3 different products that the provost office had wanted us to analyze. And we can do so as a service to help you or help guide you through that process, so that in the future you can be more empowered and independent to make those types of decisions. And, or we're open to doing it whenever, just as a service to departments and teams within the university. Anything else? Oh, I don't hear you, Christy. Sorry.
I know. I forgot. I was clicking on the chat and I forgot to unmute myself. So just they were talking about maybe a physical lab, which would include hardware. So I'm gonna put also again in the chat. This person just joined a little later about the tool and the link to the tool. So that might be helpful too.
Yeah, we do not have a physical lab but we are more than willing to have Zoom sessions or go through and help show you different tools, applications, and the like, which can be helpful for accessibility testing, so that we can, again, help you to become more aware of what's needed in that area. So procurement takeaways: any product can be purchased if analyzed for accessibility and if an exception is approved by university leadership. Obviously, we want you to be selecting the most accessible product to meet your business need, which is the second bullet. And then, like I mentioned earlier, the vendor conversations are ever so important. You can get a good indication of where a vendor is with regard to their attitudes when you speak with them, and just even ask them questions like, how do visually impaired individuals access your resource, or what considerations did you make for those with hearing difficulties and the like. So you can ask very open-ended questions that really help you to gauge where the vendor is with respect to accessibility. And there already are exceptions in place for some resources, and I have an indication here to see the ACE tool is a tool we developed at Texas A&M to show which products we've examined that are leveled to A compliant, which is the standard we shoot for. And it is protected. We don't want the whole world to see our sandbox, if you will, for showing which products are accessible or not and which ones have exceptions. But I will show you that here in just 1 second. Let me see if I can do this effectively. It's always a challenge when we try to go back and forth. Here we go. Can you see that? Okay, so I did want to go through a couple of things for this section. One of them is the VPAT. And so this company, ITI, or this organization, developed the VPAT based on the WCAG criteria. And they also have a Section 508 version. They have a European Union version, and this INT incorporates all three. And we utilize WCAG 2.1, and it's a little bit confusing because they have VPAT 2.4, but that's their actual version of the VPAT for WCAG 2.1, if that makes sense. So they've changed it a bit since these, they've changed their form a bit since these came into play, these criteria. But if you scroll down to the bottom, you can get to the actual VPAT and what it is. And I don't know if this is it'll just bring this up. This is itself, and it goes through and explains to you how to utilize it. And this is more for vendors, right, to tell them how to fill it out. So if a vendor does not have a VPAT and they are interested in filling one out, you can always point them to that website and tell them that we adhere to WCAG 2.1 level 2A standards, and then they can fill this out. So all of this information is instructions. It is important to know that within the criteria, it will indicate supports, partially supports, does not support, or non-applicable. Non-applicable is only to be utilized whenever that section doesn't apply to a specific product. For example, if it's not a website, you wouldn't look to the web criteria, and that would be not applicable. So what we're looking for is a whole lot of supports, but we also do want to be concerned if everything is supports and there's no explanation about it. It could be kind of a red flag scenario to where if they're not giving any more information than it just supports it, then we would kind of want to question and maybe ask more information if possible. So I'm going to try to minimize that, and then products. Oh, this is important so we'll want to get the name of the product. And when you get that from a vendor, you want to make sure the product name is on there, believe it or not. Some provide it without that information. We also do want a version number because versions can change accessibility quite considerably. The report, the product description, contact information, any notes, any evaluation methods used. And the more information they're providing here, the better. And we realize accessibility is important to them, right? So there are a couple of things. This is the ACE tool, which shows different resources that we have university-wide. And so this is searchable. You can search for a product name here if you wanted to in this search box to the right in the middle of the page. We have university-wide, college or administrative unit, or departmental-wide exceptions. In rare instances, and it's going to be more commonplace to where maybe the whole system, Texas A&M University system for our shared services contracts would have system-wide exceptions. So we can look here, and if we click on university-wide under the search of scope of approval search box, then you can see right here, any of these products that are shown or listed here could be utilized without going through the exercise of finding the VPAT and going through the whole exception process. Now, a couple of things to note is that maybe it's available for university-wide usage because it is conformant at the level AA level, like this AIM integrated work management application. It is compliant, and so then the expiration is good typically for 3 years from that compliance date. And then it could also be available for purchase because we have an exception approved. So in this instance, we have the exception approved. So several different things that are very helpful is you can click here to find out more information about the product. You can also click if there is a VPAT that would open up the VPAT to the product that we have analyzed. And when I say we, it's the IT accessibility team. We've analyzed all these products and we've sent them through for exceptions, and then leadership has approved its usage. And then we have the approved exception, and that is helpful because sometimes you can see specific accommodations that units may have in place for deficiencies with regard to the accessibility criteria. So this provides information. It is important to know that if you search under the college administrative unit, then purchasing this could only be done without going through that process if you're in this particular unit, and in this case, Division of Marketing and Communications. Same thing with departmental. So we have many departmental exceptions as well. And then I'm going to hit reset, and then we can look. If you search for level 2A conformance, you can see all the ones that we looked at that are compliant with all those regulations. Does anybody have any questions? The instructions too are up here, and then there are links to more different resources on our website. I know that we're just kind of breezing through things, but this will give you an idea of where to go to get more information about this. Any other questions? No? Okay. Let me try to get the presentation back up here. So next is creating websites. And I know a lot of us don't create websites, but it's important to know for content reasons, even if you're providing content for a website, or say you have a faculty member that wants a website, all site visitors should be able to get the same information no matter how they arrive at it, right? So, and we encourage the use of templates. And I know the College of Engineering and I believe the College of Liberal Arts have templates already available for do-it-yourself types of websites. Marketing and communications at the university level may also have some different templates or code that you can utilize for more accessible websites. So you want to just make sure when you're developing the website that the navigation is intuitive, that folks can really know where they're going and know how to get there from your layouts without being distracted by, wild colors or crazy fonts, or you want to just make sure things are clean, concise, and then using the universal design principles and accessibility best practices, some of which we'll go over here in a second. So the standards we use, again, are WCAG 2.1 level 2A compliance. So I just had said, if you recall correctly, that there is no VPAT for web development, and that is true. But when developing a website, those developers should be going through those criteria to make sure that their websites will be compliant, whether that has adequate contrast, for color, has heading markup that's correct, and the like, which we'll go over again too. One of the things that you can do is request access to our enterprise-wide scanning tool, which is SiteImprove. And this allows you to not only see accessibility errors or warnings, it also does help you with your website if you have quality control issues or broken links. And quality control is like spelling or grammar and the like. And so I'll show you that in just 1 second too. And then just make sure documents that are linked for, within your website are accessible. So there's nothing worse for someone who uses a screen reader than to be directed to a totally inaccessible PDF. So whether your PDF is 20 pages long or 200 pages, if it's not tagged for accessibility, they may not get any information from that document. They may just only, understand the file name and nothing else is readable because it basically is an image that has not been tagged. And then WebAIM is an organization which is an industry leader where you can get more information and useful tips. We do have some on our IT accessibility website, and just the big thing that I always stress is try to be consistent when developing a website. Try to be consistent, concise, have things structured in an ideal way. We want to, and I'll go through those links when we get through this section. I think it's a little quicker that way. So using alternative text for images allows those who can't see the image to know how the image relates to context, how it adds meaning to the different text that's around it, allowing color contrast to be properly set based on an analyzer tool, and not using color alone to convey meaning, which is more like if you've seen a form and something indicates, the items in red or are the required items. Well, it may be hard for someone to distinguish whether it's red or dark gray or black if they're colorblind or have those types of issues. Using meaningful link text without just click here, read more, because if you someone who's using a screen reader, if they go through the links, it may read to them, click here, click here, click here, read more. It doesn't explain the destination to where the link is going. So that is super important. And then if you can, like I was saying, organize and group text into sections using headings. Use list formats, whether that's bulleted list or ordered lists, numbered lists, and ensure that transcripts are used for audio content and that transcripts and captions are used for multimedia like videos. So we're going to go these. I'm going to let you know these videos will not play. We tried to do that, I think, last time, and I failed to remove them from here. But I think Christy or Megan will be providing links, and so you will have those links to look at later. I am going to tell you that this color contrast video indicates that it's a best practice to use black and white, and I'm here to tell you that that is not exactly true. You can use any color combination for foreground text and background text, which meets color contrast requirements. A safe bet is using dark gray text on white. That's super easy on the eyes for someone who has vision difficulties. So, black and white is not always recommended or required. It's just maybe a safe bet to choose black or dark gray along with the white combination. All right, so let me get back here. So these are the web content accessibility guidelines that we spoke of, and it ensures that information that you present in a digital way is perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. That is the POUR concept. The acronym is POUR. And just if we select something like, I'm just going to indicate here, audio only and video only, you can see that it gives you a lot of information about the criteria and what to do and why it's important, and even maybe how to fix something that is not done correctly. So as you can see, there are many requirements, but many of them also go hand in hand. And even something as simple as the language of the page has to be designated in a web page. So when you have time, you can scroll through those things and just see, what all of those mean or encompass. Then we have a contrast checker, and I've just pulled up here the contrast checker, and you can see that for WCAG AA, which is what we try to adhere to, it does not pass. Nor for AAA, and AAA is a more strict standard. So AA, and then for large text, it happens to pass for large text in our level that we utilize, but it fails for AAA. And you can see here by sliding this, just I'm gonna slide it this way, and it fails for everything because it's getting lighter and lighter. As you go darker, it's going to start popping up that it passes in here and it passes there. And so that would be the level at which, this would be the level at which it would start to be compliant across the board. So you can see how that's helpful. You can add the color code here. There's also another checker by the Paciello group where you can, let's see, it does hex colors like that. And it also has an RGB slider for use if you're doing Word documents and you're needing to know the RGB combinations. Then we have our accessibility website, which has a developing website section, which is helpful, and we give some information there. And I think maybe I'm jumping ahead of myself, but I'll just go ahead and show you. We have an EIR accessibility glossary that provides terms related to accessibility and then related resources that have links to it. And we try to provide like an industry level link, and then Texas A&M type of link, and then an extra kind of how-to link if it's needed. And so usually, we're still adding terms and, developing that, but that's a great resource also. This color contrast checker I already showed you. This is one of the video. These three are videos that, like I said, I cannot play. This is Site Improve, what we were talking about for the websites, and it allows you to go in, and this is our IT accessibility website. I try to tell people don't get too caught up in numbers because sometimes there's a false positive, or there's in some rare instances, you may try to fix an accessibility error and it breaks another part of your accessibility. So developers kind of have to walk that tightrope here. So our goal is 100%. The benchmark for education is 83.8. But keep in mind that when you're looking at these scores, it's a number only, and we're really concerned with the human side of accessibility. So even though the number is great, there are many issues that cannot be determined through an automated accessibility checker. Contrast is one of those that it may pick up that something may, maybe you need to check the contrast of something that's not definitive. And another is keyboard access, which, as I mentioned earlier, is ever so important. And you can check keyboard access by tabbing through a website. Just pull up a website and start hitting tab and see if you can go through and see the links and the information on that website. And that's helpful. Another thing is when you're enlarging the screen, it would not necessarily catch that things are displayed in the proper order if you are enlarging your browser. So that's helpful to know. WebAIM is an organization that is helpful with web accessibility, and you can keep them in mind. They offer courses. They have, like if you search terminology here, like if you like consistent navigation or whatever the case may be, And you can search terminology, and a lot of times they'll have helpful articles about it. Just a quick thing, and I know we're getting a little short on time, so I'm going to try to go really fast. But this is an example on our website of inaccessible content versus inaccessible. So you can see here how this text is butted up against the picture. It's pretty cluttered and you can't read it very well. This image is blurry. It's not added at the proper size. Then many times this happens to where in the website editors, folks don't know that like one of the metadata points that they put in populates the page title, and then they go ahead and add a page title again. So sometimes we see a double page title. Hopefully that's caught before it's published. And then here somebody just really liked this font, and so they go, oh, I like that font and I want to emphasize this, but they shouldn't do that because it's a heading and it should mean something. So this is ideally a heading level 1. You would want this to be a heading level 2. Then this is a heading level down here. So you want those to be somewhat sequential. Here we're using color alone to convey meaning. And we manually added in dash marks instead of stylistically adding bullet points. And there's a click here which should, really, tell more about the destination of where it's going. This should be a bulleted list instead of an ordered list, because an ordered list takes importance or steps in a process. So that's what this mainly indicates to you. The inaccessible content explained, it tells you everything that I just said. And then here's an example of the accessible page, and you can see how it's more clean. It makes more sense. It's a best practice to bold something that's also red to show emphasis. And again, here is our destination link, which means something, and then a bulleted list here. So you can see that this is much more accessible than the previous version, previous page. Okay, and so back to our presentation. Any questions before we just quickly go into designing documents?
We do have a few, Cynthia. Okay. Anne-Marie, do you mind unmuting so you can ask your question?
Yes, I will. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I hope you can.
Sure can.
Okay. All right. So my question, Cynthia, and thank you so much for this wonderful information, is when we're thinking about VPATs or evaluating a website or a product, what guidance, or can you steer us toward the guidance with all of these free teacher tools? So they're acting like a website where people have to interact on it, but a lot of them are free. So things that come to mind are actually Jamboard, Padlet, Wakelet, and we're starting to use a lot of these things. So do we, I even tried to use the Wave tool from WebAIM, which does that. Is that so? What guidance can you give us for that?
Well, for guidance, I can just let you know you can still ask for a VPAT from those different entities. You can ask for one. Some of them may not have one. One thing that we're doing within our team, and it's a collaborative effort, or will be a collaborative effort with the system, is that we want to analyze some of the academic resources, grade them, and put them up as a source, kind of like the ACE tool, but kind of more for instructional material, for instructional products, or open source. I guess you call that OER, Open Educational Resource. I don't know what the acronym is for, but OER. So that, and then we hope to provide like a feedback mechanism to where it's more of a forum, to where we can allow users to put comments about their accessibility experience. We can vet them and then add them and, modify the score based on actual usage. So, that's something that we're planning on doing. I would say within the next 12 months, we'll probably have a tool out like that.
That's wonderful. Thank you. But that gives me a little bit, so we can ask for the VPAT and also kind of look, because what I've tried to do is use the screen reader too, which
Mhm.
seems to be very cumbersome. So that's
Yeah.
getting me thinking about the difficulty with the creation. So thank you. I don't want to take up
Yes.
any more time. So thank you.
Absolutely. That was a great question.
And then we also had a question about, you had mentioned templates, and I think you were talking about how some colleges like engineering and some others have templates that hopefully are accessible. And they were just asking if the templates are for WordPress or Cascade. And I guess maybe, are you seeing, are some of those more accessible than not? I'm kind of interpreting some there, and Charlie may want to add if that's helpful.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is it's, dependent upon the college or the unit. So I would venture to say that the templates that are being provided by like liberal arts may be templates for content management system, or a lot of I'm not going to say a lot. Some of them provide WordPress templates because they're easy to spin up for faculty. So I believe engineering may be using WordPress. But there may be a variety out there, or you can also find, different templates and code on GitHub and other content sites for developers. Anything else?
Those are the only questions right now.
Okay. I'm going to try to fly through this because I know we got 10 minutes left. So tips for designing accessible documents. So chunking information is helpful, keeping your document clean, understanding that PDFs may not be accessible unless you make them that way, and consider using resources by NCDAE, including document cheat sheets, which I'll show you these two again here in a minute. I guess let me do that now because I didn't realize that section was that short, but let me do that.
Cynthia, let me interrupt you real quick. We're actually scheduled until 3, so you don't have to rush quite as much.
Wow, I did not know that. I think last time was an hour, but okay.
Yeah, we increased it because of the feedback of people having to hurry too fast through their presentation, so we increased the time.
Expanded Q&A at the end then, so that'll be good. That'll be good. So in Microsoft, and this may be something good to do here in a bit if we have additional time. I think I asked this the last few, is how many people knew about the Microsoft or Office accessibility checker. And so that'd be good to put in the chat if you just say, hey, yeah, I knew, or no, I didn't know. And we can just check on that. And then also I was interested in knowing to, let me see if I can find it here. Well, it's probably not in here. I was going to say, how many of you knew about the style ribbon and assigning styles in the ribbon? And I'll show you that here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry, y'all. So for any PowerPoint or Word document, you can go in, and I'm not sure if this is correct for Office or not. Check accessibility in the file info, I think, the info tab. And you check accessibility and it will recommend what you need to fix, whether that is, alt text is missing, or maybe check the reading order of your slide, or whatever the case may be. And so when you click check for issues, it will bring up the errors and it'll bring up the warnings of what you need to check for. And then you can go through and kind of figure that out. The cheat sheets by the National Center on Disability and Access to Education allow you to go in and see, okay, I have a Word document, what do I need to do for it? And so here you can click on this. Okay, I've got a Word here. This is the style, heading style I was speaking to. You can go in and change these styles. I think this is what it looks like, just the default for Office. But you can go in and assign different formats, different fonts, different like bold or italic or whatever, you can assign the headings to that. And then it's super easy because every time you want a heading, you just click on that style and it's no more highlighting the text, changing it to a particular font, changing it to a particular color. It's very quick. You just click on this heading and then boom, it's done. And it not only is it quicker for you, but it assigns the proper headings for screen readers and other assistive technology. And same thing with adding alternative text. If you right click, a lot of times if you right click the picture, it will allow you to add alternative text, which is basically a description of what that image represents in relation to the text. It has columns, and here you see the numbered list, bulleted lists, how to put hyperlinks in, making sure data tables have headers and more information. It goes into talking to you about the accessibility checker here. But you can see too that they not only have that for Word, they have information for PowerPoint, Excel, and then for Adobe products. I would let folks know too that there are many good trainings available through LinkedIn Learning, and one of those is their PDF accessibility training. That's a pretty intensive training, and so we don't. Although we offer a couple of trainings at Texas A&M, it's a very detailed, very long kind of training that is, I feel like, better taken at someone's own pace through like LinkedIn Learning, because you can stop and go and as you please and not be overwhelmed with all of that information, if that makes sense. Ensuring access as strategies for success. Accessibility really is a culture, and we want to create a positive culture, and there are ways to do that here at Texas A&M University, and many organizations to get involved with. Also make sure that you're establishing a dialogue and having those good conversations, like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, and collaborating with others, because we don't need to recreate the wheel if something already exists, or perhaps I can help you with a piece of something that you're needing and you can help me. And then remember that always that the multiple modes of access are good, and try to continue to seek feedback and be an accessibility innovator. And by an accessibility innovator, I'm saying that in two ways. One is to follow all these steps of doing these great things, being respectful and seeking training and the like. But we also at Texas A&M have an accessibility innovator network, and we meet, it's a lunch and learn that we meet every other month. I think it's the second Thursday of every even numbered month. And if you want more information, just let me know. But we have great guest speakers from all across the campus. I'm going to try to get an industry leader type of person to come in and visit with everyone at least once a year, to be able to do that and give us great information. And then I wanted to mention other training options. And I was telling Christy before everybody joined on the call that the EIR accessibility coordinators across the system created a task force to look into accessibility awareness training. Well, we determined, yes, we needed that awareness training across campus. And so after many months of designing, developing, redoing, having a pilot, having testers of more than 150 individuals across the system tested it, which we were thankful for, is we finally have the product, the accessibility awareness training, and it is available on TrainTrack right now, and it will be mandatory for all faculty, staff, and student workers beginning fall of 2022. And it's a quick training outlining some of the things that I mentioned earlier, and but more importantly, like I said, it's awareness to be able to do your job, your role, perform your role better. So say you're sending out a lot of emails, it's going to help you with that. If you're creating documents for others to utilize, it will help you with that. Or designing websites or procuring resources or whatever the case may be, it's going to help you with that. So here are some of the options, and I'd like to say that that's the best course to start out with is the accessibility awareness training. It gives a broad information with good general knowledge and great background, about accessibility and why we do it and how we do it. And then our team or holds this training through TrainTrack also, web accessibility essentials and advanced training for those web developers or content providers who are actually doing the work of websites and other web development applications across campus. And I mentioned the LinkedIn Learning, and we as state-supported institutions of higher education have free access to level access training, which, when they started out, they had about maybe 10 training sessions. Last time I got on, they had about 65 different training sessions regarding accessibility, role-based training. Depending on what you do at the university, you can pick and choose. I think you can get certificates of completion for what you do, or at least, monitor what you've completed and show transcripts and the like. Open source resources like the Replay Media often have great webinars. There are podcast listservs. If anybody is interested in any of that information, I have some really good listservs you can subscribe to, including EDUCAUSE, and TXDLA has a listserv as well, I believe. Paid trainings like WebAIM, the website I showed you earlier, they can either come to our location and hold trainings, or you can fly to, I believe it's Oregon or Utah, and get training. Or they have a lot of great tutorials where you can just look on their website and find those. IAAP, which is the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, and AHEAD, which Christy, you'll have to chime in because I never remember what that acronym stands for, and Christy is very involved in it.
Yeah, it's the Association on Higher Education and Disability.
Thank you so much. Maybe one of these days I will remember that. And then conferences and short courses. AHEAD holds two great ones every year. One of them is called Accessing Higher Ground, and the other is their AHEAD annual conference. And TXDLA, as well as, I think next week there's one, if y'all want to look it up, AXCon, Ax.con or something of that nature, and I can give you that information too if you ping me on it. So here is just kind of the types of training that I just mentioned. Again, awareness is for beginners. The web I would consider to be intermediate, advanced, and role-based. Level access, open source, and paid trainings really run the gamut. And then conferences, once you have a good general knowledge of beginner accessibility, you could maybe branch out and do some of those conferences, whether those be virtual or trips to different conferences. Those are good. Here are some resources, and forgive me, Christy, but I did not put these. I forgot to put these in the list that I sent to you, but hopefully we can get them in there somehow, or maybe I can copy them here in a minute and put them in the chat before we disperse. But this is the Accessibility Innovator Network. So if you click this link, it's a SharePoint link if you're interested in joining our group, and I'll have to preview to be able to see the content. When I preview, you'll be able to see all the content of different things going around the campus community with regard to accessibility. You'll get this calendar of events, of things we have going on every other month, and then every once in a while we'll have a special event, like we want to plan a web accessibility, like, I don't want to call it a sprint, but I don't know what we'll be calling it, but it's just, kind of like a work day or two to see how much we can get accomplished on a website in a few days or weeks. Then level access, that training, to get that access to that training that I said was free, you send your name and your state of Texas email address to support@levelaccess.com, And then within 3 days, they'll give you a link to where you have access, and then you can change it to your own password. And then just other information here. This is a course by the University of Indiana, I think, or Illinois. I can't remember which one. That's a whole accessibility course. That's a really good one. And then a TXDLA certification. And then this is a big certification for accessibility through IAAP. And these are the different courses and their numbers for Texas A&M Train Track, the awareness course, Essentials and Advanced. And then you can contact us anytime at itaccessibility@tamu.edu, and we can field any of your questions, concerns, product assessments, or website assessments. That's one thing I did not mention. If you have a website and you're wanting to launch it, and we do pre-launch assessments, and we also will go in and look at live sites and just make sure that those are compliant as well. We have a really great reporting structure that we can give you a report that basically tells you what you can fix and how, and referencing all of the WCAG 2.1 guidelines that apply. Are there any questions?
There is just a link right now to accessibilitymaker.com, and it's a site for
Charlie,
people.
that's from Charlie, I bet.
It is a site for people who want to make the world more accessible to all.
So the Maker project is one where individuals can go in if they have a disability and request that an assistive appliance or device be made for them through either 3D printing or just making accessible aids, or making aids for accessibility with common products that each of us can purchase and make. And so that is a super cool thing that Charlie's been, trying to make everyone aware of across campus, and I'm most appreciative to him for that. Any other questions? I'm really sorry that I breezed through everything so fast. I really thought I had only a limited time.
I don't see any questions right now. I think it seems like that there are a lot of people on this training that have some experience, which I think is great. I know several people said that they were not aware of the accessibility checker in Microsoft. So that was.
Oh, we can do, let me see if I have a good document to pull up, and we can just.
And I had actually forgotten about that one. And so I have a document I've been working on that I'm trying to make sure is accessible, because I am not a technology person. I am not skilled in that area, but I'm practicing all the time and trying to get better at it. And so I pulled up that accessibility checker to check. So if I can do it, I know you can, which is my lesson a lot of time when it comes to technology.
I was going to pull this one up, and it's hang on one second. I think I messed something up. Let me see if I can find a good one real quick. Crash my Word. So, but now it's open again. So hang on one second. I'm going to just pull up this VPAT, and I'll just show you. You go into File and then Info. And a lot of people don't realize it, but this properties is important. If you go to advanced properties, you should always have a title in here, the author and your company. And that's helpful if you end up having that put on a site, it'll pull that metadata. But also if you're changing this Word document to a PDF, it should keep your title and that information. So again, to show you where that is, it's under properties, advanced properties. So that's the first thing. Then you go here to check for issues and check accessibility. Oh, and it's saying it's a limited document, older document with limited functionality. Let me find a different one real quick. You would know, it would be Epic Fill when I'm trying to demo something. See what this one is. So this, again, this says no accessibility issues found, but I don't know, like if we added an image in and we didn't put alternative text for it, you know, for example, it would come up here in this panel as something to fix, and then it would tell you how to fix it. I have another, I think my PowerPoint that I presented today was 100% accessible yet. So let's go to that one, and you can go to file, the same thing, info, check for issues. See, and so here it's showing missing alternative text in this rectangle rounded corner. So really all you have to do for this is edit alt text, and you can mark it as decorative right here. So if I mark it as decorative, no meaning or need for that. Just to show you here, this was something that came from a template, but it wasn't accessible. So I grouped everything together. And when I grouped everything together, that meant instead of this being actually read by a screen reader, it's an image. And so I put in all the information in the alternative text here. So just keep that in mind. One thing I do want to show you that I didn't really know existed until I started working in accessibility is if you go to view, outline view. And so let's go to the first slide in the presentation. And everything that's in here will be read by a screen reader, right? So if it's not here, like this page, none of this will be read. It's all parts and pieces of graphics that won't be read. So for this one, for example, before I send it to Christy for the final version to upload, I would go and group it all like I had done for the other one and add that information in. So if you look in this outline view, everything that's on your slide should be, and again, this one's not here, but we could effectively, you know, just indicate for alt text product demo or whatever the case may be. But, you know, that gives you an idea that anything that's in here is going to be training. And again, right here, I made that an image, so I assigned alternative text to it. Another thing about PowerPoint, I like to mention to people, if you don't use one of your templates in PowerPoint, chances are some of your text won't be displayed on the screen. What I mean by that is you have these master styles, if everybody's ever seen this slide master. And if you're not using one of these preset templates and you just go in and create a blank slide, it may not read your content because these are pre-selected to be blocks of content. So if at all possible, you should try to utilize slide masters for any of your slides rather than just making up a slide from a blank. And there are ways, again, to, like, I could go in the slide master and change that font if I chose to do so. You can change the font and the style in the slide master, but you just have to keep those text blocks or it's not going to read it, you know, once you get to the presentation. And any subsequent, like if you make a PDF out of it, or there any questions about that? That was something that was a little tricky for me in the beginning. Also, the slide order in PowerPoint used to be like if they say check slide or check reading order is what it indicates. Sometimes check reading order is sometimes that reading order is, or most times, every time it is backwards. So if you, and I don't know how I'd get to that part, but it would come up as an error, and then I would need to see that, okay, this is showing up first, then this, then that block of text. It presents everything backwards so that your heading should be the last thing because it's read first, which is weird. But just another kind of trick. Any questions? Of that? Any questions about anything accessibility related? And I'll give it a shot.
That was helpful walking through that, Cynthia, because I think sometimes it's just knowing there is an accessibility checker is very different from seeing how that works and how you would actually use it to go through your document.
We do also have on our IT accessibility website, we have a whole procurement section about the ins and outs of VPATs and that ACE tool. So if you go to that, here's information on the ACE tool, you know, why we want to try to look at accessibility first instead of at the end of a purchase process in different things. Then this exception request kind of takes you through step by step what you need to know and how you need to do it if you're like looking for an electronic information resource to procure. And one of the things I failed to mention, the categories of resources that are low risk that I mentioned earlier that you just have to fill out a quick form. Anytime you're procuring something and you need to have a decision whether it needs to have an exception or whether it's in that category and it just needs to be registered, just contact our team at the IT accessibility at tamu.edu. It's easier to contact us first because you may end up filling out a form potentially that you wouldn't have had to fill out. So we can save you some work just by you sending that to us to go, hey, does this, you know, will this need an exception? Or do I need to just register it? So that's helpful to know too. And then let me just go back here and show you. We have a whole section on creating documents, captioning videos, which we need to flesh out a little more. One thing that we've been doing lately is adding, and let me see if I can pull that up to help desk.
And we do have another question also, Cynthia.
Okay. Well, this is pulling up, asking the question.
Okay. Anne Marie, go ahead.
Okay, so Cynthia, the comment / observation, when you're doing the accessibility checker in Microsoft, whether it's for Word or for PowerPoint, I've noticed that depending on what version you're using, you get different errors. And I don't know if you've noticed that or not. And so in working with our team members, we just try to stay, we all have the same version is what I guess is what I'm saying, because I've noticed that there are different errors, and I've seen it in PDF too. If you're using, you have to have the latest version or it picks up different errors. And I just was wondering if you'd noticed that.
I've noticed it just because I think we're all on the same version of it too. And so yeah, I had not noticed, but that's really good to know. That's one thing I will say about websites too, is when we test websites, our team looks at the website as it renders in different browsers, because you know every browser can make a difference. So something may be keyboard accessible in Chrome, but is not accessible in Firefox or Internet Explorer or Safari. So we do multi-browser testing with regard to accessibility to ensure access no matter what type of device you're on. We don't do so much mobile testing, but when you reduce your screen size, you can see the mobile implications of it all too. So that's the extent of our mobile testing. But if you search for accessibility in the knowledge base under Help Desk Central, we are adding each week. We've added many, I think in the last month, we added 14 or 15 accessibility articles. And so we have introduction to web accessibility, components of web accessibility, how to use the PowerPoint accessibility checker. That's a good one. Differences between accessibility and universal design, and hyperlinks, tips for forms, usability and web writing. So we're adding those all the time. If you have a topic that you want to research, or just pull up this whole thing and start going through them, those are available now that we've been trying to populate. And so that's yet another resource for you to help you, navigate accessibility. Anything else I can demo or show, or questions, anything?
Looks like we're good. I did
Okay.
put a link to the help desk. I'm sure all of you know how to find it, but I went ahead and put
Yeah.
it in. We're full of links.
Yeah, and so there's a section right in the middle of the page, search help documentation, and if you put in accessibility, and we tried to add accessibility at the beginning of every single one of our articles, so that it's accessibility and not like the word access to, because if we, it could, bring up a search result that says access to the cloud or whatever. So we tried to put accessibility at the beginning of every one of ours, so it's very clear that that's what we're dealing with.
That is super helpful. Thank you.
So welcome.
Oh, and Charlie wants to know if we can share the accessibility maker stuff. I don't know if Cynthia has access to the chat with the links that you had put in there.
I actually think I do.
She may just have to look a little differently. I know when I'm sharing my screen, sometimes you have to be a little wonky to make it work, but she could show a couple of those things and save a little time.
Oh, wait. It's just clicking on it and then it didn't open. Here we go.
There you go.
So this is the makers making change. And so it starts out with like, someone puts in a request that they want a maker, and then they discuss details, they build the device, they prep it for delivery, and then they get reimbursed for part costs and it's delivered. And so here's like a seatbelt release aid, for example, for someone who cannot use that push button, but could navigate it in another way. And these are the different requests. And then you can, I think you can click on it, and Charlie, how does it work? You assign it to yourself, I guess, and then you're able to go and, find out how to make it easily with common parts, like I was saying, or if you have 3D printing or access to 3D printing, and make a lot of these interesting things and helpful things. It's a great way to show how folks are crowdsourcing accessibility and access aids. And here again, you'll see here's a tinting stand for an Argo split keyboard, different assistive switches kit. And as you can see, it's really popular because there's like 10 pages of this kind of stuff or more. And then here are different project needs. And then the different skills that, like, say I'm a woodworker and I go, oh, I would like to know how I can help. And I could click on this one for woodworking. Again, that's just accessibility in action. And so it's always great to show. We talk about practices a lot, like a whole lot. We talk about practices, best practices, criteria. It all boils down to the human aspect of access. And, we've had some meetings with different federal agencies, and it all boils down to, we just need to know people can access what we're providing to them on the human level. And so if we design with outliers in mind, then we're designing for everyone. So again, my special thanks for the great partner that Accessibility Resources is, when needed across campus as well.
Yeah, I think we're almost out of time, and I know Megan wants to make sure that you saw the link to the evaluation form. So I'm going to mention that real quick, and she put it in again. That's really helpful for us. As I said, like we made the change to be in an hour and a half instead of an hour because of feedback that things were being rushed. So we definitely do take your feedback and make some changes, especially if you have suggestions for other topics. That would be great. And Megan and I just kind of brainstorm who are the partners for accessibility on campus. So obviously, Cynthia and her team are a huge partner as it relates to accessibility. That's something that in disability resources, we really emphasize is that accessibility is everyone's responsibility. So we feel like everyone who attends these is obviously kind of understanding that and demonstrating your commitment to make campus more accessible for students, faculty, and staff that have disabilities. And we are so thankful that you are here. We're thankful for all the work that Cynthia and her team do because it's so important. Her website is awesome. I probably go to it. She doesn't even know how many times. I'm not a technology person and I still reference it all the time, or I send it to someone for a resource because there are so many things that if you just go there, it will tell you what you need to do. So just really thank you, Cynthia, for doing this. I go to other campuses and they do not have the partnerships that we do and the support that we do here. So thank you to you all. Please fill out the evaluation. April's announcement will come out before too long. So still working on the details of that program, but we will send that out through our regular campus formats. Cynthia, you're getting lots of positive comments. So hopefully you're seeing those and we appreciate you all. Please connect with Cynthia if you have other questions or if you have other disability questions, feel free to contact me and y'all have a good rest of your day.
Thanks. Bye, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity.